Everybody has seen the transfer portal change college football, but what if I banned it? How would the next 10 seasons play out? With just a few quick changes, nobody's allowed to transfer anymore. Talent development is all that matters, and small schools can keep their best players without them getting poached. Some coaches are thrilled with this new change, and over the next 10 seasons, we'll see if there's any new powerhouses that emerge. Every year, I'll be simming to conference championship week, and then we'll spectate games with massive playoff implications like number 11 Clemson against number 12 Pittsburgh. After starting 1-3, the Tigers have somehow been able to fight their way back to the ACC championship. And in a world where the transfer portal is completely banned, games like this matter more than ever. There is no better pitch for recruiting than being able to list off the championships, the playoff appearances that you've won, so Pittsburgh needs this, especially if they're going to compete with Clemson over this 10-year time frame, because we know that Clemson is going to do a very good job whenever it comes to recruiting high schoolers. It's where Dabo Swinney shines. He doesn't need the transfer portal. Pittsburgh is making a lot of progress too. After Eli Holstein spiked the ball, it's going to be 2nd and goal for the Panthers, where they're just going to get the quick throw out, but they still need 5 more. And Holstein's already thrown 2 interceptions in this game. I would hate for him to get a third down when you're this close to the end zone, but he had a wide open drag that he missed, and they still catch it. Right now, it's looking like the Panthers are going to get a playoff spot, win the ACC, but they're leaving Clemson with about 30 seconds left and 3 timeouts. It is time for Cade Klubnik to potentially save his team. He was avoiding the pressure there. They got 6. But if they're going to get into field goal range, they need at least another 30 yards, so you need bigger gains than this. The Tigers have already burned through 2 of those 3 timeouts. This is going to be a throw that they want, though. It puts them in a position to attempt a 58-yarder for the ACC championship, but it's no good. The Tigers were so close to redeeming themselves, but because they couldn't, Pittsburgh has stumbled their way into the college football playoff. There's no telling how they're going to do there, though. John Mateer from Oklahoma won the Heisman Trophy, and he even got the Sooners into the playoffs as an 11 seed, but they're going to have to play Ohio State in the first round. It looks like Boise State ended up being the Group of 5 champion, which is why they got that 5th playoff bid, because Memphis lost to Tulane. And I know Penn State fans have to be super excited to see this result in the Big Ten championship after that loss to Oregon. When it comes to banning the transfer portal, though, everything that you're seeing right now, there hasn't been that impact yet. These teams were still built out of the portal. Nothing will change until next year. Let's say players on the Purdue roster aren't happy that they went 3-9. Well, they're stuck with the Boilermakers forever. That was their first decision. They can't leave, so I doubt they're ever going to see the top of the Big Ten. That means here in a second, when we go through all the stat leaders in the country as well, those guys are going to always stay on the same team. So if there is a freshman that ends up being a breakout player for some random team in the SEC, like let's say Kentucky, we got a breakout freshman. Cutter Boley plays well. He gets to stay with the Wildcats his entire career, though I think he would anyway. This is just the type of stuff that we're going to be tracking. I want to see what changes over this 10-year time frame. Kevin Jennings threw for 40 passing touchdowns, but that did not get him the Heisman Trophy. We know who it went to. And since he only threw for a little over 3,000 yards, I had to scroll a while to find John Mateer, but he had 37 touchdowns to 3 picks. If there's any quarterback I want to make note of, Owen McCown is UTSA's quarterback. He's a lefty, and he threw for the most passing yards in the country. He's a junior, so he's going to have to come back for his senior year there. He's not allowed to transfer out. And speaking of a big-time player on a smaller school, we got Jalen Buckley from Western Michigan. He's going to have to return for his senior year, where he might get even more rushing yards. Talent development all around the country is about to go crazy. We're going to keep an eye on Jordan Napier as well. He had the most receptions in the country. If you want the guy with the most touchdowns, it was 20 from Amarian Miller. He's at Colorado. But that's enough of the stats for now. We had to check out the playoff bracket, where Pittsburgh just lost to Georgia. Oklahoma, with their Heisman winner, could not take down Texas Tech. And maybe Penn State and Oregon get to play for a 3rd time this year. Well, that is actually exactly how it unfolded. Penn State won by 21 against Texas Tech, and then the Ducks beat Georgia by 10. All with junior quarterback Gunnar Stockton playing pretty well. It just wasn't enough since his defense gave up this many points. What this means is for the 3rd year in a row, the national champion is going to come out of the Big Ten. And I'm sure that the farther we get into this video, the more chaos that's going to ensue. Well, Penn State is in a very similar position to what Pittsburgh was against Clemson. They're currently down by 6. Drew Aller is playing like Drew Aller, though. Maybe he's going to hit this throw. Looks like he's sensing the pressure well. A touchdown gets Penn State that first national championship, and they're a little closer. These injury timeouts are so helpful, too. It's honestly a major bailout since they didn't have any timeouts left of their own. Plenty of time back there. Drew Aller is getting all the protection he needs. His offensive line wouldn't allow any kids to pop out. Let's see. Is he going to escape here? Not really. That'll keep the clock running. 36 seconds left now. He has underneath. He doesn't want it, though. He wants to go for the 50-50 ball. And I'm telling you all, me and him have the same mentality. Why would you take the first down when you could go for a massive play, for a highlight? Here we go, 4th and 5. You have to at least pick this one up. But he throws it straight to Oregon when I saw a drag right in front of him. The Ducks are going to take home the first national championship we'll see if they can go back to back. They have set themselves up to have a very good 10 years in this video, but this is just the start. In fact, Dan Lanning had other plans than staying at Oregon this video because he's decided to take a job at Michigan. Steve Sarkisian has left Texas to be the head coach at Alabama. You got Mike Norvell coaching at Texas now. And since Kalen DeBoer got fired, he took a job at Michigan State, while you got Utah's head coach Kyle Whittingham taking the Oregon job. The transfer portal might not be open to the players anymore, but the coaches can still move around however they'd like. And the only way guys are going to end up leaving their program in this video is going to be through either graduation or going on to the NFL. You can still get players leaving school early, like on Oregon, they've won their national championship, they lost their head coach. Maybe that encouraged more younger guys to leave. And when we go over from the prospect list to the transfer portal, you're going to see that it's completely empty. So obviously, the most important thing in this video is going to be the high school recruiting class rankings. As you can see, it's just going to be a bunch of big schools at the top. They're still going to be able to get the top talent, but let's say a school like Boise State signs a top 16 class. They have 2 5-stars in here. Nobody can poach that talent when they get better. In fact, the Broncos getting the #1 player in the country, Byron Stubbs, that is a major deal for them. They also got a really good receiver, the #4 player in the country. They got 4 stars throughout this class. I think Boise State is going to be a force to be reckoned with. Outside of Tulane, no other smaller schools really surprised me with their recruiting class rankings yet, but that is something that wouldn't come until years down the line anyway, after a program's had a lot of success. We'll see what ends up happening. This is what the top 25 looks like, and let's just advance to conference championship week in year number 2. Well, when you get to a week like this, where teams are ranked is very important because the top 12 get into the playoff, the 5 highest rated conference champions. I can't believe UCLA's in the Big Ten Conference Championship and Mississippi State's in the SEC one. But besides that, FIU is ranked at number 13, Boise State number 16. And when it comes to the conference championship game that I want to watch, I don't care for Miami and SMU, even though that will be for a playoff spot for the Mustangs. I want to see how Mississippi State does against the Bulldogs. If you look at the Big Ten standings too, Nebraska is going to be in no matter what. In the Big 12, it's just between these 2 programs. And remember, whoever wins these games is so important because it directly affects their team prestige. That team prestige then ties into the recruiting classes they can get, the coaches that they'll have, what their school grades are looking like. And so even though Mississippi State's been able to make it here, I'm sure this is disappointing. Unless they somehow scored 21 points in the next 30 seconds. They're going to lose to Georgia and Gunnar Stockton, who I said was going to be thirsty for revenge. He's now a senior. He wants that national championship, and Georgia's going to have a first-round bye in the playoff. I think what's going to be an interesting story for us to follow now, though, is what happens to Mississippi State. Their quarterback, Luke Kromenhoek, still has another season with the school. Nico Iamaleava has found his success with the Bruins, by the way. He just won the Heisman Trophy. That is absolutely wild to see. I checked in on Owen McCown. He got injured this season, so that's why he didn't have a chance to lead the country in passing yards again. It was Kevin Jennings that had over 4,000 yards, 37 touchdowns. I'm surprised he didn't win the Heisman Trophy himself. He definitely had a better stat line than Nico, but the turnaround at UCLA, I guess you can't make up for that type of effect. Jalen Buckley basically had the same season that he had the year before, and then on the receiving side of things, we don't have any true freshmen up here, but I'll be looking for those in the future. Some of the other results during conference championship week include FIU winning by 14, but dropping a couple spots, and then Boise State moving up to number 11 with a win. I think they just took away that playoff spot from the Panthers. That's actually so devastating from them. Boise State's getting like a monopoly on the group of 5 bid for the playoff. I've never seen anything like it. They move up 5 spots while FIU falls 2. All they both did was win, but it puts Boise State in. Mississippi State stays in as well with that very last spot in the playoff. And I don't know how Nebraska has done it, being the only 9-3 team in the playoff, but they got in with the 9 seed. They actually ended up beating Miami 34-31, moving on to the next round, where in the quarterfinals they got blown out by USC. Duke beat Mississippi State. You're going to see that Florida's made their way to the national championship against Utah, who just lost their head coach to Oregon. Then it hit me. We have got to check in on the Ducks. Where are they at? Currently, they're sitting at 9-4. They weren't even ranked inside the top 25, and Dan Lanning didn't have a great year with Michigan either, but it's his first season there. I'm truly just stunned that this is the championship game that we're getting in season 2. Billy Napier figured things out with the Gators. Utah is living up to expectations, and Devin Dampier is trying to lead them to a comeback right now. They might be down by 10 points, but they still have all 3 of their timeouts, and they ran the ball on back-to-back plays. For the onside kick, though, are they going to get lucky? It hits off of the Florida defender's back. Utah has it, and this is the chaos that we deserve as college football fans. Can Utah win it all? They are 46 yards away from pulling this off. Florida giving him all the time in the world for a 2-yard gain. Devin Dampier would have been much better off just scrambling there, but it is what it is. The Utes don't need to be in a rush. they're going to have a wide open touchdown. What are the Gators doing? They just fell down by 4 points because someone didn't get their assignment correct. This is the Natty. You can't do that. We might already have a new powerhouse emerging in college football. Granted, to really be labeled as that, they still need to win another 1 or 2. DJ Lagway just isn't doing much. He has stayed with this team. He was forced to stay with this team, and he gets this one out. It's not going to be caught. But we've seen him pull off some crazier things before, so that'll work. There's still 26 seconds here left in Allegiant Stadium. The checkdowns just aren't doing enough. At some point, you just got to start sending it like 30 yards down the field. I think he might do that here. Nope. He did. By the time he threw that to his running back, he could have just ran for the first down himself. Basically, all Florida can do is just throw up a Hail Mary, or they can get out of bounds or not. That was their final attempt at coming back against the Utes. Somehow Utah has won a national championship. And do you want to know who the head coach was that got it done for them? It's Luke Fickell, who got fired at Wisconsin, then came here and found success. With all the crazy coach moves that we saw last year, I'm not expecting as many this season, though Spencer Danielson went from Boise State to Washington, so the Broncos have lost their head coach. Mike Norvell left Texas after 1 year to go to the NFL. And Lane Kiffin has taken the Oklahoma job. That's a shocker. Matt Rule got fired from Nebraska. They made the playoff. How did he get fired? You know what? Some of these coaching moves are still pretty crazy. You got Shane Beamer leaving South Carolina for Florida State. You got Josh Heupel leaving Tennessee to go over to Ole Miss. And with Brian Kelly retiring, you got Jed Fish from Washington taking over the LSU job. But this is the one that stuck out to me. Alex Golesh became the OC at Iowa. My Kentucky Wildcats also finally got rid of Mark Stoops, but we replaced him with Lance Taylor. I've never even heard of this guy. He coaches for Western Michigan. That's just not the hire that I was hoping for. DJ Lagway is going to go on to the NFL as well. He's not going to stay for his senior season and try to get revenge with the Gators. Now, if I sit here and scroll at all the 5-stars that were signed around the country, I've seen UCLA and Utah get some, so that just shows their successful season has helped them out, but there was no 5-stars that went the group of 5 schools this year. And I'd have to assume that Boise State's recruiting class after losing their head coach is going to fall off, though we're seeing Duke get inside the top 10. Even for a lot of these programs like Tennessee, LSU, Washington, that all had a head coach change, those players already committed. They can't transfer. They can't leave at this point. They are stuck going to that school. And with Boise State's class being ranked number 37, the American Conference having a team like Tulane get in a better class, we might see a brighter future for a different small school. FIU's was only 64 though, even after finishing in the top 15. Something that is just completely unacceptable is Kentucky has signed the 93rd best class in the country. And I think we all know we're probably not going to see a Kentucky Wildcat in the Heisman Trophy race throughout this video. You got Marcel Reed, Dante Moore, and Arch Manning, all 3 of those quarterbacks still at the school that they started at. They have not left to go into the NFL. I can't believe Arch hasn't. The fact that he has stayed all the way until his senior season, plus he had that redshirt year, he should be maxing out everything, but he didn't. Either way, if Texas doesn't make a good run at winning a national championship, then that is such a big letdown for them. UCLA is currently ranked inside the top 5. You got Duke at number 7. You got Pittsburgh at number 11. What did I tell you? Winning that ACC championship is going to help them out. Even with having a 4-star team prestige, the Panthers managed to finish just inside the top 25, ranked number 24. You got Miami, Clemson, and Duke all up here at the top of the ACC. Duke is ranked higher than these two, even though they're not in the conference championship. And Boise State has actually been taken over by Colorado State inside the Mountain West. As for some of the bigger conferences, we have Auburn as the number 1 team in the country. Texas did end up finishing pretty high up this year. If we look at the Big 12, Colorado and BYU are going to be battling it out for a playoff spot. Inside the Big 10, UCLA and Nebraska up top with Illinois. I feel like the playoff picture that we might get is already going to be pretty random and wild for just being a few years into the future. For these games, though, I have to decide which one do we want to watch, and I think it's got to be between Colorado and BYU. Deion Sanders is just 1 win away from winning the Big 12 with Colorado for the first time, but it's not like it's going to be easy to take down the Cougars. So far, though, we have been truly blessed with close games, because we have another one on our hands. Juju Lewis is going to throw up the seam straight to BYU, and that is going to end their hope at probably getting into the playoff and winning the Big 12. They just lost to a quarterback that wears the number 47. It's a tough look because Deion Sanders was so close, but he still has another 7 years with Colorado in this video to win the Big 12. Arch Manning took home the Heisman Trophy, so he had the year that we were expecting. And I guess you can pair that hardware with an SEC championship as well, because Texas took down Auburn to become the number 1 team in the country. Here's some of the other results that we have seen so far. Tulane lost to North Texas, which means App State might have a chance at getting in. Never mind. The 5th spot went to Colorado State because the 4th spot spot went to BYU. And this is what our playoff bracket is looking like this year. Colorado State didn't get a very favorable matchup. UCLA and BYU, though, should be a really good first-round game. Another thing we can check out as well is stuff like team stats, where Texas was the leading offense in the country. Colorado State put up 41 points per game this year, though, so when we look at player stats, they'll probably have a quarterback up there. This is what the top defenses were. But back to the offenses. North Texas had a sophomore quarterback with 14 interceptions. Chris Jimerson Jr. probably doesn't care, though, because he threw for almost 5,000 yards. We're also starting to truly see some other big names around the country. Kenyon Moffitt is a freshman quarterback. He led the Rams to the spot that they're in the playoff. He's just a freshman, so he's going to be around for a while. Delaware has this sophomore quarterback. Who knows if he'll have another good season next year, but one of his receivers is just a junior, and he was the number 4 receiver in the country in receiving yards, so he'll be back for another season. Then we have our rushing yard leaders. I'd say the best running back in the country was Florida's running back. 17 touchdowns, almost 1,500 yards, though Greg Burrell's been pretty good for Texas State. It's so weird seeing some of these names like his and Amarian Peterson, who stays at UTSA. Normally, they always transfer. You never see them staying at these schools. As for our national championship game, it's going to be between Georgia and Texas. I'm trying to follow along with how some of these other schools are doing. UCLA and Duke, I think they're going to be back here quite often. The basketball schools seem to do well in sim due to their playbook. But I don't even know who Texas's head coach is right now, because Steve Sarkisian went to Alabama and then Mike Norvell left for the NFL. Turns out it's Joey McGuire. They got him from Texas Tech, which might be why the Red Raiders for the first time didn't have a playoff appearance. They had been in the playoffs 2 seasons before this one, but this game ended up being a blowout. At one point, it was 24-0. Texas just annihilated the Bulldogs. Kirby Smart kind of got his team to fight back a little bit at the end, but I'm shocked that they lost like this. Arch Manning is going to end his college career with a national championship and a Heisman Trophy. Every season, he just got better, throwing for at least 10 more touchdowns, less interceptions, and more yards. Another thing I've learned from looking at the Heisman Trophy finalist is Eli Holstein is a senior, and with him graduating, Pittsburgh might fall off even farther than they did. For their real life standards, nothing that they're doing right now would be a fall off, but they won an ACC championship and now things are starting to slow down. Some of the massive staff moves around the country involve Steve Sarkisian taking over the LSU job after getting fired from Alabama, which means already Jed Fish has lost his job at LSU. He's going to Louisville. And he had to do that because Jeff Brom went on to coach in the NFL. Kurt Cignetti, he is retired from Indiana. They'd already not been doing well in sim. I'm not sure how that's going to affect them. Dabo Swinney took that Alabama job though, which meant Manny Diaz from Duke has taken the Clemson one. All of those changes with schools like UCLA continuing to recruit well based off of their success. They just signed the number 7 class in the country. Alabama and Dabo Swinney, they signed the number 12 one. We got TCU up here in the top 15. And I can point out that the number 1 quarterback in the country signed with Michigan. The number 2 quarterback signed with Ohio State. But here's the thing. I don't even know if these players will end up playing for these schools. I really don't know how they're going to end up developing those guys. Tulane signed the 3rd best class in the American Conference, so their fall off is going to continue. Boise State signed a lower class than Colorado State. And even though just a year ago things were looking up for FIU, now they signed the 97th best one in the country. Now clearly, whenever we're looking at conferences like the SEC or the Big Ten, they're going to have a lot of the highest rated classes in the country. The Big 12, though, struggling like this is the reason that their conference continues to get a little worse. And headed into season number 4, we got California's quarterback up in the Heisman watch list. I think he's going to end up being a big transfer target this year for some schools. We'll see. Keelan Russell is starting for Alabama. CJ Carr from Notre Dame is a senior. He's projected to be the Heisman favorite. And this Wake Forest receiver is up there as well. Jeremiah Melvin. He's never even gone over 1,000 receiving yards. After simming the conference championship week this year, though, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to see how Wake Forest did this season. We're going to check on them in the ACC standings. Right before I do that, though, I just have to point out Kentucky is in the top 25. It's preseason, but we're in the top 25. Well, the Demon Deacons ended up going 8-4. California is in a tie with North Carolina and Miami, though, for a spot in the ACC championship. I'm not sure which of them is going to be playing Clemson. The Duke fall off was so fast as well. They just went 7-5, but I realized why. Whenever one of these coaches takes over another program, they take the playbook with them. So that Duke playbook that was really good for Duke, now Manny Diaz is at Clemson running the veer and shoot. That's why following the coaching changes is probably the most important thing that we could do. Colorado State is back inside the top 25 with hopefully a chance at going back to the playoff, though they need some other things to happen like USF and Toledo not winning. As for the Heisman Trophy race, I was hoping Cal's quarterback was still up here. I don't know if any of these players are playing in a conference championship. I don't think they are, and we might as well see if the Golden Bears can get into the playoff. Just from the looks of it though, with their new head coach Manny Diaz, I think Clemson is about to to restore the dynasty that they were. Or maybe they're not as good as we might think. They only have one loss this season, but it's looking like they're about to pick up number 2. Quarterback Chris Denson just got injured, and they have a minute 7 to get down this field and score a touchdown if they want to beat the Golden Bears. Maybe Cal is legit. Maybe schools from California are starting to be good again. Maybe we'll see Stanford in the future start to have success. Never mind. Never mind. They just gave up a 70-yard touchdown bomb like it was nothing. This leaves them with about 40 seconds. And I just feel bad for Jaron Kiowiu Sagapulatelli. I don't know how to say his name. I never will. It is what it is. He is going to fake out those defenders to have an easy 6 yards. And all hope is not lost for California. I mean, all they need is a field goal. Looks like he's going to evade the pressure. Not well enough. At some point, you just got to get that ball out of there. Maybe he can do it on this one. It's just not going far. You need a big gain, and on a 4th and 2 after spiking the ball, I don't know why he's lined up under center. He actually handed them off. Like, why? Why would you hand the ball off? This is a coaching disservice, a malpractice. Get him out of there. If you're a fan of Cal, you better hope that them being able to even make it this far allows him to take a better job and he leaves. Then again, you're probably not going to find another coach that'll get Cal back to that position in the first place. Keelan Russell from Alabama won the Heisman with Dabo Swinney as his coach. He was not a part of the SEC championship, where Tennessee basically doubled the score against LSU. Penn State obliterated Ohio State, by the way. For some of these other results, Toledo and West Virginia got in, while Colorado State lost to Boise State, so they missed out on their spot. And even with a bad recruiting class recently, FIU's won their conference again too. It just feels right in the world that West Virginia is back to having some success in the college football world. If we look at these playoff teams, I mean, there are so many big schools up here. Missouri getting their name in, Washington as well. But hang on, that can't be the case, because we know that Toledo and West Virginia are also getting in, which means Missouri is making the playoffs, but the Huskies are not. I also think it's a little ridiculous that at 9-4, Ohio State's still ranked number 8, and they're gonna get their shot. I knew this would come at some point, but I think even last season there were only a couple 3-loss teams in the playoffs, and the ones that were teams that lost in their conference championship. Checking back in on Kentucky real quick, we went 7-5, so mid-table in the SEC. 6 of the 12 teams in the playoffs, half of the playoff picture is SEC schools. The Big Ten put a couple in, and if West Virginia and Toledo weren't ranked so low, Washington would have been in as well. But it is just mind-blowing to me how much of the playoff picture that they took over, and it makes sense how the 2 teams in the national championship are both from the SEC. Before we see that game, I forgot to check out some of the player stats from this year. Granted, these are going to look more inflated with a few more matchups for some of these playoff schools, like Deuce Knight, than they would in previous seasons. That's why we have quarterbacks that are thrown for more yards. Typically, before every team plays their ball, I'd look at these numbers, but I forgot. Greg Burrell is still having success with Texas State. He has another season with them as well. Every year he rushes for more yards. Maybe he goes for 2,000 next year, but he needs to get more touchdowns if he wants to be in the Heisman conversation. I also want to talk about Kenyon Moffitt, because the Colorado State quarterback took a step back this year, and he lost the conference championship to Boise State. We'll see if he takes any leaps forward during training results. The receiving leaders, Landry Fisher, the sophomore from Cincinnati, had the most touchdowns in the country. Seems like there is always some guys up here from smaller schools as well. It's always the most random guy, though, that gets so many yards. Like Glenn Lowe for Appalachian State, he had 0 receptions. He had nothing last season. This year, he puts up numbers like this. That's enough stats for now, though. Let's check out this game between Auburn and Tennessee. The last time the Volunteers took the field, they went into who knows how many overtimes against Ohio State, where they dropped 67 points. Ohio State's quarterback threw for 7 touchdowns, no picks, and it still wasn't enough. George McIntyre got Tennessee the dub. So if he can do that against the Tigers, I don't see how Tennessee wouldn't win. Remember, Tennessee lost their head coach a couple years ago as well. Josh Heupel went to Ole Miss, and they actually took in Rich Rodriguez from West Virginia. Both of those programs being in the playoffs this year, while Ole Miss was nowhere to be found. For this game specifically, though, Tennessee is currently up by 3 points, and it looks like they're about to get a sack. All they have to do is keep Auburn and Deuce Knight out of field goal range, which won't be hard with throws like that. If the Tigers want to pull off this comeback, those are the types of throws that they need to make. They're now sitting on the 36-yard line, and Deuce Knight is going to put out a laser that's held onto. The Tigers might no longer have any timeouts left, but we have to wonder, are they going to score a touchdown? That's still a very real possibility. Tennessee could lose the national championship in the final few seconds. Most likely, though, we're going to be headed to our first overtime game in a natty. And after spiking the ball, they just sent out their field goal unit so they could tack on this field goal. There wasn't enough time for them to score a touchdown. They needed another 30 seconds. Tennessee is just going going to run the ball and take this one to overtime. It looks like the Volunteers are going to get the ball first, and there was plenty of time back there to make that dump off. That's exactly what you want to see out of your offensive line. We got a jet touch pass coming around to this left side. The blocks are there, and Tennessee is in the end zone. The real question becomes, how will Auburn respond? Deuce Knight has a lot of pressure on him, and he is going to start with a 10-yard gain. Now they're going to hand it off straight into a tackle, but they still got the gains that they wanted there. And we really haven't seen how effective Auburn can be on the ground, but we are going to here as they get another run. 2nd and 3, dropping back to pass. Deuce Knight just takes off 2 plays in a row. He falls all the way in, but I highly doubt they go for the 2-point conversion now. I might be in the minority, but I still think in this position, you should. Most coaches don't in real life, and I understand why. You want to trust your defense, but you could end the game there. No matter what, you have to go for the 2-point conversion on the 2nd overtime drive. So it ultimately will come down to 2-point conversion attempts most of the time anyway. I don't know. I feel like if you're blessed enough to get the 2nd possession in the 1st overtime, you should just go for it on the 2-point conversion. But maybe it still works out for Auburn. I'm curious though, what do you all think about that? Let me know in the comments. I'm sure there's some analytics and stats behind it as well that could help you come to a conclusion. Deuce Knight is putting on a performance. We're talking team on his back trying to get Auburn that natty. Those fans haven't seen something like this since Cam Newton, and is the defense going to step up? It's 3rd and 1, and the Volunteers aren't going to run the football. It's going to be caught over the Auburn defender's head. He did not care. He threw it straight at him. And what do you know? It all comes down to a 2-point conversion. After that one, it goes on to 3rd overtime where they just trade them back and forth. And I still think this is such an awful way to end a national championship. Think of what they took from us. We used to get full drives every single time. That LSU Texas A&M game that went on forever, pure cinema. But now we're stuck with a result like this, where Tennessee gets to win the national championship because they had a better 2-point conversion call. Either way, that was an incredible game, and I'm sure the Tigers will have a chance at coming back. But we are now 4 years into the transfer portal just not existing. Craziest national champion so far was Utah with Luke Fickell. I haven't been checking in on them though. We know that their recruiting class couldn't have been that good since everyone in the Big 12 has been struggling there. They just went 8-5. It's not like they lost head coach Luke Fickell either. He should have 100% job security and be able to stay there for the rest of his career if he wants. Dan Lanning ended up at Colorado. How did I not pick up on this? The reason that I didn't is because he just got fired from Oregon. What a fall off from winning a national championship to then going over to Michigan to then getting fired and ending up at Colorado. Where did Deion Sanders end up? I know it's going to say Kirkpatrick. We're just pretending this is Deion Sanders. He got to USC. Then California's head coach Justin Wilcox is headed over to Texas Tech, so California might start to fall off. Lincoln Riley is headed back to Oklahoma. The reason he's headed there is because Lane Kiffin did not have success with the Sooners. He ended up getting fired to go to Oregon State. And then we got Willie Simmons from FIU getting a job with UConn. He is moving up in the world, though FIU might struggle a bit. Mike Bobo hired by Michigan to replace Dan Lanning. Those were the biggest coaching moves from around the country. Recruiting classes are going to start to make a big difference. Everyone that's been recruited at this point is most likely going to have a chance to get on the field now. There's been a lot of guys that have been starting that just started off on that team because they were a real player. I think like 90% of college football is going to be fake after this season, 100%. All new generated prospects, where Miami and Clemson have been the only 2 teams in the ACC that have been recruiting well. In the Big 12, Colorado still, even without Deion Sanders, is going to be in a good spot. We have Tulane now signing the 118th class in the country. So what a fall off for them. FIU is going to be at 99. So losing their head coach definitely affected that. Out of the MAC, Toledo, could they become pretty good? I really don't know what to expect because teams like Boise State, after beating Colorado State in the conference championship, finished number 18, but they still signed a class that is below number 100. Colorado State had the best one out of the Mountain West in the SEC. Kentucky is going to have one of the worst 3 classes, but at least it's not ranked 93 or 91. 41 is a lot higher up than that. Then I'll briefly mention the Pac-12. Not much is happening here, though. I need to realign the conferences to make it like real life now because we got to get the real Pac-12 in here. I can't believe I forgot to do it. Someone is going to be upset at me in the comments for that, and rightfully so. That was a pretty big miss to skip over for a couple seasons, but now things are correct the way they should be. I've even made the SEC schedule 9 games instead of 8. And currently in the preseason top 25, the only team the Pac-12 has here is Boise State, but we'll see how that changes over the course of the season and the next 6 years. It turns out the Broncos didn't even make their conference championship. That is right, 6-6 Colorado State and 8-4 Washington State got in over them. And even though the SEC has had a lot of teams in the playoffs in the past, it looks like this year there could be a few of them that are just on the outside. It's definitely been one of the more chaotic seasons. This Big 12 championship is for a spot in the playoff. Georgia State is performing well. They're number 16 in the country right now. Then we got Temple and Tulane Tulane battling it out for a spot in the playoffs as well. UCLA is still in the Big Ten championship. But we just have to see if Temple is able to win the American, because that is not a team I would have ever expected to get to the playoff. Tulane even has to go on the road to Lincoln Financial Field to play against them. And we have hopped in just to watch the Green Wave get blown out. That's right, Temple was able to win by 21 points. Maybe this is the start of a new team shining out of the American. And the Heisman Trophy ended up going to Benji Thomas out of Ole Miss. I figured at some point Josh Heupel would get the most out of a quarterback on his team. They're number 3 in the country for a reason. Michigan had a receiver up there as well. Delaware's quarterback up in the Heisman list. In the past, we've seen they've had good receivers to throw the ball to, and EJ Archfield Jr. took a major step forward. In fact, if we compare him to some of the quarterbacks in the country that threw for the most passing yards, he is well up there. Number 2, Josh Coleman for Utah State. He might have a good senior season. And then Kenyon Moffitt, number 1 in passing yards, 12 interceptions still. We know Colorado State went 6-6, so it's not like they had a great season anyway. Cameron Williams came so close to cracking 2,000 rushing yards, though. We have not seen that yet. And I know we've been tracking Greg Burrell, but his stats are going to be disappointing because he did have an injury. On the receiving side of things, you have guys like Eli Gossett up here that were 4th in yards, but only had 4 total touchdowns the entire year. I'm ready to just go ahead and check back in on these conference championship scores. Cincinnati and Texas Tech are both ranked number 12. I don't know how that works, but only one of those teams can get in the playoff. Obviously, Cincinnati won that game, so you would think it could be them. Georgia State, they're number 16, and they're not going to be one of the 5 highest rated conference champions, so they're going to get left out just like FIU did. Can we talk about how many Big Ten championships UCLA has lost recently, by the way? They've made 3 of the last 4, but they can never pull it off. Luckily for them, that's never impacted their spot in the playoff. They're going to get Temple in the first round, so they've basically just got a bye to go ahead and play Texas. That could be disrespectful. But guess what? Their senior quarterback ended up throwing for 4 touchdowns. They won 45-17, so it ended up being the truth. And UCLA didn't just win in the first round. No, they went out, beat the Longhorns by 1, then beat SMU, so they are in the national championship versus Washington. For the group of 4 teams that was in the semifinals, that was the wildest group that we have ever seen. And it's almost like in this era where the transfer portal doesn't exist, we're getting so much more chaos, which is weird to me because the top teams have been dominating recruiting still. I can't complain about it though. You all know how much I love chaos and underdogs. That was a great broken tackle there. He almost turned that into the go-ahead touchdown, and I know I was dogged on UCLA for never winning a Big Ten championship. But look at this. They are basically a minute away from winning a national championship if they could just score a touchdown on this drive. And that natty would easily make up for all the Big Ten conference championship losses. Tight end hangs on. The Bruins are currently flying down the field. Little pump fake in this play. It's caught. Marquez Michel is going to go up to the line and spike the ball, though, for no reason. You want the clock to run off a little bit. You don't want to waste it down. And now it's going to be 4th down. This is it for the national championship. Can UCLA pick it up? They have found a receiver at the 10. Their hopes stay alive with 39 seconds left. I think they're going to be okay. Who cares if they don't have 8 timeouts left? They get in. But Washington still has all 3 timeouts, and all they need is a field goal to send it to OT. They're going to take out the kick, which was a very weird decision. He caught it in the end zone. That wasted time off of the clock. They're going to be starting this drive at the 18 now. And the check down is going to get them about 8. That's not the end of the world, but what we've seen in a lot of these games is the computer's pretty smart. They'll drop everyone back, they'll give up the underneath throws, and then the QB falls for it every time. This is where you want to play soft coverage. He is once again going to go short. And unless Washington gets a first down, which would stop the clock, I don't know if they're going to be able to get a field goal off. There's only 12 seconds remaining. This is not the read. Not the read they pushed him forward. That might have just saved the Huskies' season. The fact that they got the first down there, they're going to be able to spike the ball. But this kick is not a freebie. We have seen them missed from this distance before. Is it in? It's not. The refs are signaling it's no good, so they're going to take a knee. And UCLA has done it. Who cares they can't win the Big Ten? They just won the entire thing. We're only halfway through this video, but we're already starting to get to those champions that just feel like complete fantasy. And there is nothing I would love more than to be able to see the coaching changes, but this is what we are given on the screen that normally lets me see all those moves. That's just another small bug that's been in the game for a while, but I started to look through some of these coaches to see if there's any changes I've noticed, and I think this was the year where not much did change. I can't remember if I talked about it yet or not, but Kalen DeBoer at Tennessee is kind of crazy. And so is Sharon Moore, headed over to Michigan State. Now, at one point, he went somewhere else because Michigan went with Mike Bobo a little bit ago. If you look it down there, you'll see record with that school. If it says 0-0, they just moved over there. So Iowa got a new head coach. Oregon got a new head coach. Penn State has Bill O'Brien now. And that means I have to find out where James Franklin got hired. Kyle Whittingham went from Oregon to USC. I think he must have gotten fired with the Ducks. It's just hard to piece all of that together without the information we normally have. Shane Beamer took the Boston College job, while James Franklin ended up going to Virginia Tech. Some of those changes could really shake up college football. Despite Alabama having no success so far, they're still signing top 5 classes basically every single season. But Oregon getting a new head coach has dropped them down to number 22, and they never have a class that's ranked this low. The new Pac-12 has also brought in what's close to a top 25 class for Colorado State. And I'm going to be interested to see if Georgia State can get back to winning their conference championship again out of the Sun Belt, because they didn't have the best class this year. As for the ACC, it's the same type of story. Clemson and Miami up there. Then if we go to the Big 12, no one seems to be able to crack the top 10 ever out of the Big 12. Barely getting into the top 25 with one team. I'm not saying I ever expected them to, but they still have time to turn things around. Washington and UCLA are both inside the top 3. We got Wisconsin up there at number 10. They're probably glad that they got rid of Luke Fickell, even if he won that natty at Utah. And for our Heisman watch list, every single one of these players is generated for the first time. These have all been new prospects that have been created. Boise State recruited this kid. Alabama got this sophomore, obviously. And is the 97 overall quarterback, Emmanuel Obi, going to be the thing that turns around Alabama football? I mean, his accuracies could barely be any better. This is what they want. Ultimately, though, he must not have been as good as everybody thought, because my Kentucky Wildcats, who went 2-10, very concerning, we beat Alabama, and then they also lost to Arkansas, Oklahoma, Tennessee. Alabama wasn't even in the top 5 in the SEC. Those spots belong to these programs. Then out in the Pac-12, Boise State is finally back on top of their conference. I think they're playing Colorado State. But there was a team I said we were going to focus on, Georgia State, and guess who's number 18? Their only loss came by 14 points to Ohio State, who is currently number 17 in the country, so they're probably going to miss out on the playoff. Is UCLA in the Big Ten championship again? We'll check that in a second, but what did I say? I want California schools to come back. Stanford is number 4. That was a lot to take in, but this is what the conference championship games are looking like. I think we're just going to hop into Arizona State and West Virginia, since that's probably for a playoff spot. And ultimately, if I just filter by top 25 teams, these are all the programs that have a chance at still getting in, since 5 of the highest rated conference champions make it. After all this time, I thought Kenny Dillingham was still with Arizona State, but he actually took a job at Memphis. And one thing you can't say about the conference is it's not entertaining, because there have been all sorts of different winners, but nobody has been a consistent powerhouse there. West Virginia has been trying to build on the success that they've had, though, and they're getting very close to just being able to close out this game. Of course, that is barring a last-second miraculous comeback from the Sun Devils. But what it ultimately will just come down to is an onside kick, which is recovered by the Mountaineers. That is all that they needed to go ahead and get back in the playoffs. At least I think. They might not be one of the 5 highest-rated conference champions. The Heisman Trophy ended up going to Georgia receiver Harvey Moulton. We have not seen someone have a stat line like this before, but he had almost 2,000 receiving yards, so that's the best receiver I think we've had this entire dynasty. TJ Moffitt was slinging the rock. Before we really look into those stats, though, let's take a look at all these conference champions, because Memphis losing to UAB ruined their chance at making it to the playoff. West Virginia is ranked 12, so they did get in. But more importantly, UCLA, they lost again, so UCLA just cannot win the Big Ten, even after they won a title. Georgia State got in as well after barely beating Arkansas State. That's going to leave us with a bracket that looks like this. UCLA would have a chance to get revenge on Oregon if they beat Boston College, who just picked up Shane Beamer. And when it comes to the best quarterback in the country, I think they made the right decision giving TJ Moffitt the Heisman Trophy. I'm not seeing Colorado State's quarterback up here. They lost the conference championship to Boise State. So I'm trying to figure out what happened to Kenyon Moffitt. He's not going to get drafted. He's just below that overall threshold. And the only thing I can think of that caused him to regress like this is he got a new head coach or a new offensive coordinator, and the offense took a step back. There's not many young players I normally like to follow, but Michigan quarterback Stephen Mosher, I would like to follow this kid, though I just realized he's going to get drafted since he already redshirted and he was a 5-star. That's the problem. Most of the time, these guys just don't stay in college. TCU is this quarterback, Malik Wiley, who should come back for another season. He had 41 passing touchdowns. Maybe we'll keep up with him, but look at all these senior running backs. All of these guys are leading the country in rushing yards. They're going to be gone, though Georgia State's running back Jaden Telfer is coming back for one more season. The Panthers better just hope that they don't lose their head coach. When it comes to Harvey Moulton, though, I told you, he is just going to blow by all these other receivers. No one else had close to the year that he had. And if there's one guy I think might be a Heisman favorite next year as a receiver, it will be Ty Lacey out of Ohio State. He was 3rd in receiving yards. He's a 90 overall. He's going to be a junior next year after probably getting up to like a 95. High potential for him, but remember, Ohio State isn't getting back back to the playoff. They're currently sitting at 18. They have not had much success whenever it comes to that. You know who has had a lot of success though? UCLA. They are back in the national championship. They beat Oregon. They just couldn't win the Big Ten championship, and they could go back-to-back, but Clemson is here as well. To me, there were two shocking results in this playoff. The first one being Georgia State beating Miami 32-17. They'd go on to play in-state opponent Georgia and get beat 59-9, but Georgia State is still building, and then LSU took on Stanford and flattened them 38-0. For now, though, it's time to see if Manny Diaz can get Clemson back to their glory. UCLA is a 91 overall. They are a better team on paper than the Tigers. Clearly, all of those highly rated recruiting classes are really paying off, and that has come from them having success during the year. That's why those are the two main metrics that we're tracking, because it really does make a difference. So much so that at one point in this game, they were up 24-3 against Clemson. Quarterback Melvin Derrick is trying his best to help them come back. Getting out of bounds there certainly going to help, but he's only thrown for 121 yards. What I'm really starting to wonder is UCLA going to lose their head coach this offseason? I mean, that would be back-to-back championships if this result holds. It would be the biggest coaching move in the country, but hang on, this one's not done yet. Clemson kind of hurt themselves, though, by calling a timeout after that play. They've limited themselves to only being able to get the football back if they get an onside kick. The play calling is also really bad. They're worried about time, but they ran it on back-to-back plays. I guess they got in here. No one's even questioning or reviewing it, but we know what's coming up. This is it. For the national championship, UCLA has to do one thing, and it was catch this ball. That is exactly what they were looking for. We have seen a repeat national champion for the first time. I don't understand how they still haven't won the Big Ten, but maybe next season is going to be their year. Or it could be the end of UCLA football having success as we know it. Kalani Sitake, he has decided to take a job at Texas. He has left the Bruins behind. Texas is going to get his offense. The offense that just won a national championship, and Washington's head coach, Spencer Danielson, is headed over to the Bruins. We've seen Matt Campbell bounce around from Iowa State to West Virginia. Now he's been hired by Notre Dame. But do you know why that job was open in the first place? Because the Fighting Irish fired Marcus Freeman, and my Kentucky Wildcats stepped in and immediately hired him. So for these last 4 years, I'm hoping he can turn around Kentucky. We got Kyle Whittingham retiring. And the last big move I think to talk about is this one. Normally, when a coordinator has success like Clemson's did, they had a great offense, they can get a head coach job. What you don't typically see, though, is a head coach like Stedge Wheeler, who was coaching for Stanford. He got them to the playoffs and had success for the first time at Stanford. He left that school to be the offensive coordinator for Matt Campbell at Notre Dame. If there was ever any hope for Stanford football, that just went out the window. Arkansas signed a top 3 class, though. They have finally pulled together all those resources and made something happen with it. Wisconsin's going to be interesting, too, because they have a 5-star quarterback here. They've been consistently signing these top 10 classes right on the edge of it. Texas is just going to be a powerhouse since they got the best coach in the country. But checking in on Stanford, this is probably the best class they're going to get the rest of this rebuild. Marcus Freeman is not really responsible for this class yet either. We will check back in next year. Hopefully, Kentucky can do better than number 73. As Georgia State continues to improve, I've noticed that their classes have gotten better, so that's something I'm also keeping an eye on. But just when I think teams in the Pac-12 like Colorado State and Boise State are taking that next step forward, they signed some pretty rough classes. The same thing has been happening to Tulane. That's the reason they've not been that dominant. Like, they're signing 129 out of 136, but they're still having a top 25 finish. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Here's some MAC love, since I've not given the MAC any love. Toledo and Buffalo getting ranked and getting the good class together. That's the extent of everything I noticed, though. Tennessee is a 98 overall quarterback in the Heisman watch. Just want to point out that Tavares Jasper is going to be very hard for defenses to stop, though his accuracy should have been maxed out far before they worried about throw power. And actually, these player overalls, we got 96, we got 97, 95, and 94. All of them are looking very good. Those are guys that should elevate their team very far this year. UCLA received the most first place votes, but they're at number 3, if I'm reading that right. There's not really much to take note of right now besides Pittsburgh, still inside the top 25, and I think Texas is going to finish this year inside the top 5. Take a look at that. My prediction ended up being correct, but they did lose to the Sooners, which is why they're not going to be in the SEC championship. Both Georgia and Oklahoma are undefeated. When I show you all the conference championship games, you all are going to see how chaotic this year has been. Georgia State didn't make it to the Sun Belt Championship either. They gave that spot to South Alabama. And Colorado State is another undefeated team. They're ranked number 13, but they're 12 12-0. Guess what? Toledo also ranked 12-0, undefeated. They should be getting into the playoff. But those spots could go to teams like Notre Dame and UConn, who are both inside the top 15. Then we have Oregon finishing 7-5, but there are 5 Big Ten teams that should be inside the playoff too. They're taking up a lot of spots. And even Duke might finally be back. I haven't seen them have any success since they lost their head coach to Clemson. Last thing I'll talk about, Tulane, number 14. At this rate, I have no idea how these rankings are going to shape up. I don't know what's going to happen. Are they going to put in a 13-0 Colorado State or a 13-0 Toledo? I feel like they should, but they're probably going to give those spots to a team like USC, even if they lost to Washington. Ultimately, I do have to decide on a conference championship game to spectate, and since Pittsburgh won it back in 2025, it's been Miami and Clemson just running the ACC. It's been reflected in the recruiting class rankings as well. But currently, the Hurricanes are on the outside of the playoffs looking in, which is crazy to me because they have a 96 overall team. That's all their fault though. They've picked up some losses they shouldn't have. It's going to be raining in this game. And I don't think I could have picked a worse game for us to spectate. Look at the score. The Hurricanes have been so bad at throwing the ball. They are running it with a minute left because it's the only way they can try and move the rock. This is genuinely mind-blowing. They can't be handing it off again, can they? What is wrong with them? This is one of the least efficient ways to try and pick up 50 yards in under a minute. And is Mario Cristobal still their head coach? We have to check that. He's made some questionable decisions in the past, but maybe this is how they're going to get in. They get an injury timeout as a little bit of a bailout, and they just went with a jet touch pass for no yards. Are we ever going to see them throw a pass, though? That is what I'm wondering, because we haven't yet. Here it is. How's it going to go? It's going to be nothing. I think you're understanding why they've been running the football. He is all the time in the world back there as well. It's a quarterback's wet dream. Miami's in the end zone. Miami is fighting for their playoff spot still. I think they should go for 2. But guess what? They just kicked an extra point. Clemson is going to run the football, so they're taking it to OT. And the Hurricanes have the ball first. What are they going to do? They're going to run it. That's what they should do. If they did anything other than hand the ball to Martin Samuel, it just wouldn't be smart because he's getting them a lot of yards. And once again, they give it to him. He jukes. He's in. Just like that, Clemson is all of a sudden in trouble. And they're going to hand this ball off for the first down. Remember, Clemson's undefeated. They're 12-0. They're in the playoff no matter what. It doesn't matter if they win, but for Miami, this is a major, major deal. Clemson is, of course, trying to redeem themselves after losing in the national championship last year. And everyone's so boring. Everyone does the same thing at the end of the first OT. I just want to see a coach with some balls. I want to see him slam them down on the table and say, we're winning this football game. We're going for it. Instead, we have another 2-point conversion that'll have to come up once these teams get in. They get to trade those back and forth unless they get held to 3. On 3rd and 1, Clemson just goes back to the run. This is what Miami's good at. That reach for it was clutch. Miami sniffed out the run so well, and it still did not matter. They do it here. On 2nd and 7, it's another one, but this time there's a big lane. He bounces off of a tackle. And I think it would make the most sense for them to keep on doing this because that's what they've been running. It's bully ball right now for both of these teams, but the toss gets blown up. How many times do we have to see that on the 1-yard line? It's just a bad decision. When our coach is going to learn? He's not in. See, to me, what Clemson's doing is crazy. You know how I said I want coaches to just have some balls? This is the opposite of it. They're kicking 3 from the half-yard line. They have done that too, knowing that they can barely stop Miami whenever they run the ball. There's no way that they're throwing it here. I mean, there it is. There it is. They did run. I think the Hurricanes were just as surprised as me that Clemson dropped that many guys back in coverage. Look at it. Stare at it, soak it in, love it. It is beautiful football. And they just went with an RPO. What are we doing? Why are we complicating this? Just hand it off to your best player. I wouldn't think Pete Carroll would come out of retirement to be on this staff. He breaks a tackle, but he's short. We're actually going to be trading 2-point conversions. I wish they'd just end it right here. This is like going for a 2-point conversion, being that far away. But instead, they play it safe so they can trust their D. From what we just saw out of both of these teams, they clearly can't score from here. Or maybe they can now that the stakes are higher. Clemson runs the speed option, and Miami makes the tackle. That's a big play. They held him up. He did not reach for it in time. So the Hurricanes probably just earned their spot in the playoff, but that means they're most likely knocking out a 13-0 group of 5 team at the same time. As a fellow small school supporter, I don't know if I can root for that anymore. We probably wanted Clemson to win there. Heisman Trophy went to Oklahoma's quarterback. Lincoln Riley's back there, right? I'm pretty sure he is. He is back to producing Heisman winning quarterbacks. Nebraska had a receiver that was number 2 in the voting. San Jose State. We have seen Clay Haggins have successful seasons. Or maybe it was a different San Jose State receiver because he didn't. They always have someone that's putting up good numbers though. I know that I gave that personal call out to Malik Wiley last year. I said if there's anybody to watch, he's probably going to have a big season, and he threw less than half of the interceptions he threw the year before. He was second in passing yards, just behind Nick Johnson, San Jose State's quarterback. But do you know what the craziest thing about all this is as I'm looking through these stats? Colorado State has another freshman that they're going to get to develop for the rest of this video, Julius Bridge, who's already an 84, having a really good year. I don't know how they find them, and on top of that, they had a senior running back this year in Dylan Neely, who rushed for 1,700 yards, 28 touchdowns. His issue, though, is he won't be back. He won't be returning. Nigel Hilbert. Michigan always seems to have a really good receiver. But I don't think we've seen them in the playoffs often up until this year. Now, if we look at this picture, Tulane got in, Toledo got in, Colorado State got in, so the group of 5 teams did not get snubbed. But do you know who did get snubbed? Miami. Miami did not get into the playoffs. 10-3 as an ACC champion over Tulane, who went 11-2 and won the American. That's wild to me. The Big Ten champion Texas Tech also did not get into the playoff. And I guess if you wanted to see some of the unranked conference champions, you got San Jose State, who just throws the ball for 1,000,000 yards a game, and South Alabama. I guess something else I need to take notice of that I just thought about, I don't know why I wasn't noticing before. Where is UCLA? They've had all these top 5, top 10 classes recently. Their players literally cannot transfer out, but they finished 6-6 next to Penn State, who also went 6-6. Indiana went 3-9. They have fallen off. We know that's because their head coach retired a few years ago, but Wisconsin went 5-7. What's up with all these top classes and going 5-7? It has still been the same teams that have been consistently dominating college football. Colorado State lost to Michigan. Toledo beat Florida State, though, before losing to Clemson by 8, so they put up a really good fight while Tulane just got flattened. Nebraska couldn't make it to the national championship. We got Michigan versus Oklahoma. So we're getting Mike Bobo, who has been trying to turn around Michigan, going up against a Heisman-winning quarterback and Lincoln Riley. What type of timeline are we in for Lincoln Riley to return to Oklahoma, win a Heisman Trophy with a quarterback, and potentially win it all? I really wish there was something I could say that was positive about this national championship, but Michigan couldn't even get off the last snap there. They just got obliterated. They had an 82 overall quarterback that could not lead them past the Sooners. That is in part because they lost their really good quarterback to the NFL. He declared early. But Isaac Volk is still a senior, and how can I defend someone that went 12 for 44? He attempted 44 passes and only completed 12 of them. He needs to graduate immediately. Michigan fans cannot stand him. 36-3, Oklahoma wins. I don't think we will ever see a quarterback play that poorly in the Natty again. Currently, there's still 3 seasons left for more chaos to happen with no transfer portal. Utah and UCLA are the 2 national champions that have caught me the most off guard so far. The hard part for programs like the Bruins is they lose their head coach and then the team just goes downhill. Well, Tulane is about to go through that process because Bob Chesney has taken the job as a defensive coordinator at Washington. He's their head coach. What? Moves like that really just don't make sense to me at all. Now, you're going to see programs like Toledo losing both of their coordinators, but they didn't lose their head coach. The head coach changes this year are very, very minimal. And one thing I haven't checked in on much that I probably should have sooner is just looking at the conference prestige rankings. Currently, the Big Ten is 4th, though Independent's way up there, so Big Ten's actually 3rd. Big 12 is still above American, Pac-12 slowly creeping behind. Ever since realignment, though, Mountain West has been the worst. Alabama had another season where they didn't finish inside the top 25, and they're still signing a top 3 class. I don't know how they keep on managing to have, no success with the talent that they are pulling in. Oregon did not finish ranked either. Then we have Marcus Freeman only signing 2 4-stars at Kentucky. Kentucky might just be washed. I don't think we're going to have any success in this video. From all the monitoring I've been doing, there's just not been that many changes across the country. The ACC has been signing classes like this as a conference basically the entire time. American always has someone sign a class decent for a year. Tulane at the bottom again. But yeah, American always has maybe 1 good class, nothing after that. The Big 12 always has 1 team inside the top 25, then it falls off. But schools like Wisconsin that were signing top 10 classes, schools like UCLA that were signing top 5 classes, after a bad season, they did not do as well. Now, it would seem like Lincoln Riley has another quarterback project. Henry McMahon is a 95 overall senior. He just had this guy chilling on the roster. He was a 4-star, but he has gotten up to a 98 with tactician boosts. And either him, Joey Aguilar-Ura at Texas might end up having success. Kennesaw State has a quarterback that's a 95 overall. It says I'm controlling them. I've done nothing for this team. Auto recruiting and all. Apparently they got a 3-star with star dev throughout that, and his accuracy could have gotten a little bit better, but this is insane. Maybe Tyree Breeze puts Kennesaw State on the map this year. Ole Miss, they got Josh Heupel still. We'll see what their quarterback does. I always take notes of those schools at the beginning of the year because they typically end up having the success that you would expect them to. Alabama ranked preseason top 16. Are they going to finish there, though? That's what they've not done a good job of. Well, I know I said I thought Kennesaw State would do well, but they finished 2-10, one of the worst teams in the conference, far below Jacksonville State and Liberty. But guess what? The Big 12 finally had a good year. Cincinnati, West Virginia, Colorado, all of them are being considered for a playoff spot, even if most of them aren't playing in the conference championship game. Michigan up here, Ohio State, they're going to be in the playoff. And it looks like Clemson's actually going to be on the outside. Miami's still up there. Tulane, Tulsa. I can't believe Tulane has as much success with the teams they've been putting out. Toledo is undefeated again. And forget about the Pac-12. The Mountain West is producing San Jose State, who unfortunately won't have a running at a playoff spot. With Georgia State also going 12-0, there's simply just too many other conference champions that'd be able to take that away from them. And then look at the SEC. There's 3 teams in the top 6. Outside of that, nobody else is ranked. That's bad. Alabama went 5-7 alongside LSU. For everything I just looked through, I don't even know what conclusion to jump to out of it. What game I should hop into. I think Toledo and Georgia State are both going to win these, so that wouldn't be worth it. This isn't going to be for a playoff spot. Maybe NC State, Miami. I only say that because Michigan, Ohio State doesn't matter that much. Either way, both teams are in the playoffs, and they just played the week before. I know we've sat here and watched a lot of ACC championships, but there were playoff implications on the line, and I can admit when I made a bad choice. NC State didn't show up. I actually think this playoff picture and everything that's happening around the country might look very similar to what we saw last year. Oklahoma had a quarterback throw for 46 touchdowns again, and Henry McMahon did all of that with just 2 interceptions. It wasn't even close. He was the best quarterback. No one else was near him. Randy Spain sitting there out of Georgia as the number 2 quarterback, though. Jamario Burks, that's the reason Cincinnati has been as good as they have been. As for Julius Bridge, the Colorado State quarterback, we found him. I can't remember the type of season that they had. I'm pretty sure they went like 7-5. Malik Wiley, he stayed at TCU and had another solid season. Most of the time, though, whenever I'm sitting here scrolling through all these stat leaders, the guys with the most impressive numbers, it just doesn't correlate to their team's success. There's a lot of receivers up here, though, that do make sense, like a TCU receiver, a Colorado State receiver. We see their passing leaders are up near the top, so they're going to have big receivers too. Moses Clay is the number 1 target for the Heisman winner. And Georgia had the best receiver in the country with 126 receptions. You know how I know this is a video game, though? He only had 1 drop the entire season. For the other conference championship results, I'm seeing Georgia State is number 13 in the country. They're 13-0. But I think they just got snubbed from the playoff. That would be devastating for them, but it's the case. They just didn't put them in over a 9-3 Colorado. I'm sure the Panthers' resume wasn't great, and it helps the Big 12 that all 3 of these teams just boosted up each other's resume to each get into the playoff. But that is really sad that they have a chance to go 14-0 and never get a chance at a championship. By the time we've made it to the semifinals, Miami and Notre Dame are on one side, Texas and Oklahoma are on the other. So I think for the first time, I'm going to want to spectate a semifinal game. Texas just beat Colorado 52-0. You can't tell me Colorado deserved to be here. Toledo did beat Cincinnati, by the way, before losing to the Sooners. And Oklahoma's trying their hardest to go back-to-back, but they're up against the head coach that led UCLA to back-to-back national championships. This is just an incredible semifinal matchup. We'll see if Lincoln Riley can get it done. It's safe to say the Sooners aren't in the most favorable position in the world. They're currently trailing by 5. However, the game is in the hands of their Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, so I think this is how they'd won it. Except he throws a pick to Texas. Texas ends the game. Just like that, the Longhorns are headed to the national championship. And we might have to start having discussions if they win this about the greatest head coach ever. At least the greatest head coach inside this 10-year simulation, because he's going for title number 3. Kalani Sitake got it done whenever he was at UCLA. He's 165-70 in his career. He's trying to get it done at Texas. And apparently in real life, he's BYU's head coach. So after UCLA struggled in the first season of this dynasty, he must have come over there. I would have to assume that nobody's going to be able to poach him from Texas either. I mean, he should be pretty solid with the Longhorns from here on out. But that is not something Longhorn fans are currently worried about at 17-all. This national championship has headed to overtime, and Miami is going to have the ball first. We've seen them win a clutch overtime game before, but the Clemson defensive lineman had that ball in his hands. What are they doing? Hand it off to Martin Samuel. They have the same kid that's been a beast. In this game, he does have 25 rushes for 80 yards, so it's been a little bit more of a struggle for him. There's no way they gave him a carry on 3rd and 11, though. See, at this point, Miami has basically just handed over the Natty. There was a moment in this game where the Hurricanes were up 17-0, and then Texas came back scoring 17 straight, so their offense is kind of hot, but they are going to be on a 3rd and long. Joey Aguilar is going to have to pass for a huge gain here, and Miami left him open. They thought they could not get loose with a guy blended into the back of the end zone. I didn't even see him there. His jersey was the same color. And that's how Texas wins the national championship. We have witnessed a coach win natties with UCLA and Texas. And if he really wanted to have fun, maybe he accepts a job at another school. It's not happening this year, though. We got Dabo Swinney getting fired from Alabama, so we're getting some big moves again. He's now been hired by LSU. Then we have Lane Kiffin redeeming himself. He built up Oregon State a little bit, I guess, and Alabama has brought him back. That's a fit that makes a lot of sense. Dan Mullen's also bounced around from UNLV to Ohio to now getting the Virginia Tech job. But didn't a big name have that job first? James Franklin? Where's James Franklin at? He has fallen down to a C coaching prestige, and that is going to get him a job at Minnesota. Mike Gundy is also going to retire after coaching at Texas State. But if there was anything that I missed, it was somehow this. Steve Sarkisian got fired at LSU, which is what opened up the job for Dabo Swinney. And then he took the Oregon State job, which is where Lane Kiffin was. These coaches, all these big names, are just swapping around at the same schools. It's like when you live in a small town and everyone's just traded girlfriends around, even when they're like best friends with each other. You go back 5 years later, they're all dating someone else. That might come from personal experience, just seeing it with my own two eyes. Not me though, I gotta stay safe out here. As we look through these rankings, Alabama, still not a top 25 team, but they're signing those top 10 classes. It just does not seem to matter. But I did find a nice surprise in here. Georgia State, they signed a top 25 class. All of their consistent winning seasons has paid off. Toledo is also signing better classes than Kentucky, so there's that. And look at what a good season has done for the Big 12. They have not one, but 2 top 25 classes. By now, there's only 2 years left for us to see what no transfer portal does to college football. We might see Oklahoma and Texas just keep on competing for national championships. I don't think any small school is going to rise up and compete. Maybe if one of the programs like Toledo or Georgia State that's been good recently had a Heisman contending quarterback, we could see it happening, but I don't. Now, I've only looked at the Big Ten conference standings so far, but seeing Michigan State just come out of nowhere, going undefeated as the #1 team in the country, Wisconsin doing well, this has caught me completely off guard. Miami's probably not going to make the playoff either because California is back in the ACC championship out of the American. Tulane, I guess they always do well. In the Big 12, TCU and BYU, they have a chance. But I think for Toledo at least, this is the 3rd straight year that they have gone undefeated in the regular season. For some of our other smaller conferences, San Jose State went 10-2, not good enough to be ranked apparently. Boise State and Colorado State still having solid years. And Georgia State lost 1 game, so that'll probably keep them out of the playoff. They're truly dominating their own conference, but when they have to face off against a team like Nebraska, that's where they struggled. And it's just been crazy seeing how much the SEC is beat up on each other. Texas went 7-5. This is with a really good head coach as well, so they have struggled a bit. Oklahoma still ranked. And here are all of the conference championships that we could be keeping an eye on. I think we're going to watch the Toledo one. I know Wisconsin, Michigan State is some newer teams, but between them, California, Clemson, both of these games don't matter. They're in the playoffs. This is the matchup that could change things still, and TCU's got a pretty good roster with a 91 overall defense. I've been noticing that of the teams in the Big 12, both of them have been doing pretty well. But TCU just lost a 4-year starter at quarterback. I was not expecting them to be good after that. You can't be in bounds here. Cincinnati is currently down by 7 points, and they're just doing nothing that's going to get them into the end zone. It's 4th and 8, and unless they can just get like a 50-yard play off of press, which they might be able to do here, they looked for it. He caught it. No, he dropped. It was in his hands for a second, but then we all saw it pop out and hit the ground. For your 2033 Heisman Trophy winner, we're getting some MAC love here. Juan Rachel, he had 1,802 receiving yards, 24 touchdowns, 100 receptions. I mean, he did all that he could in the conference championship game against Toledo. He had almost 300 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns. But was that enough to take down the Zips? Here's the thing, it wasn't. They had 166 rushing yards on the ground. Then they had another 6 touchdowns, 352 yards through the air. They won 65-48. Of all the conference championships that happened, that has to be the craziest one. Boise State and Colorado State, they just keep on ending up beating each other back and forth. San Jose State, they're still having their little bit of success. Georgia State's not going to be a playoff team. But if Cincinnati could have just beat TCU, maybe they would have had a chance at getting that 12 seed. This is what the picture is looking like. I could see Oklahoma going on a run. Clemson is the 1 seed. And like always, there are a lot of big programs still up here. It is cool to see Wisconsin and Michigan State get into the mix, though. Washington, California as well. Alabama, they're not inside the top 25. I think they went 6-6 again. It's just been wild to see them fall off the way that they have. If we look at some of the other receivers out there, Michigan had a guy that's a junior. He should be be back for another season if he doesn't go to the NFL early, and that could help them win that last national championship potentially. That's basically all I'm scouting for right now. Colorado State has a running back that's most likely going to declare because he's a 91 overall. Toledo's running back will be back for a senior season though, and he just rushed for 20 touchdowns. Then Ohio had a quarterback throw for over 5,000 passing yards. He did have 10 interceptions, but who cares? The senior still absolutely balled out. San Jose State's quarterbacks are always throwing a bunch of interceptions. Jamario Burks for Cincinnati, though, he's just been incredible. You can see why him and TCU's quarterback were battling it out in the conference championship, because this guy's a 91 overall freshman. He's only going to get better. He will be back. And I wasn't sure what to expect opening up this playoff bracket, but what we have gotten is Clemson and Georgia battling it out for a natty. In this video, both of these teams have appeared in a national championship game and then lost it. But at least they can't both lose here. One of them is going to have to take home that trophy. Now, if there's one thing I feel like a lot of these national championships have given us, it's been really good matchups. Even if we haven't really seen too many underdog runs, there have been a lot of nail biters that have come down to the wire. And I think this is going to be another one of those. There's a minute and a half left with Georgia picking up this 3rd and 9. They are now going to get out another quick throw for 8. And Devin Moore's starting to dissect this Clemson defense, so they got in. That's going to put the pressure back on the Bulldogs. It looks like Clemson might just send 7. They only sent 4. They dropped them back in the coverage, and he didn't even notice. The bait has worked. Clemson is going to win the national championship. And this is something that Manny Diaz could have gotten done at Duke, but instead he took the job at Clemson, and this is where it's happened. Right now, though, if we compare all the teams that have won championships throughout this video, Texas and UCLA are both tied for the most at 2. We're going to see if they can break the tie next year, or if someone else ends up joining them, which I think is more likely since UCLA just went 7-5 and Texas ended up going 8-5. They're not coming off of great years. Miami's head coach went on to the NFL. Then we have Georgia State's head coach taking the job at North Carolina. This is a team that has been consistently good with him. And I guess Penn State fans are going to have to let me know how they feel about Matt Rule, who's built up Wisconsin, taking the job there. Brett Bielema has finally left Illinois, taken over at Oregon. We got Willie Simmons moving on up from UConn to Virginia Tech now. He started with FIU. But I don't think Georgia State should be too worried about losing their head coach, with Bill O'Brien leaving Penn State. I guess he got fired to take them over. Tulane lost their coach to the NFL. Dan Lanning has gone from Colorado to USC now. And the final one we're going to mention, Kenny Dillingham going from Memphis to Boston College. We have seen so many different coaching moves throughout this entire video. Texas finishes with a top 5 class. LSU, who's not had much success at all, they're at number 6. We're just going to scroll through this a little bit more. North Carolina got a top 15 class. They picked up the Georgia State head coach, but I don't think he can bring anybody over. I think the guys he would have already signed would have been stuck going to Georgia State in the first place. Kentucky just never had success, did they? I feel like everything kind of stayed the same. You'd see programs like San Jose State have progress because they'd have good years, or Boise State. Sometimes they sign a good class, but then other years they just sign an awful class. Even Toledo brought in 3 4-stars. I guess they didn't need that many players in this class because they signed 111. So maybe that's something I should have been looking for. You got Georgia State, who's been maintaining their top spot in the Sun Belt. New teams that are really good have definitely emerged, but as I look through this conferences list, not much has changed. All the big movements have come at the Power 4 level, where we've seen some surprise winners and surprise teams do well, but not much past that. The small schools, they never were able to take that leap to the next level. The transfer portal honestly probably balances things out a little bit better for them. But then again, their talent gets poached at the same time. I just feel like there's more parity in college football than ever before. It just really stinks that every year it feels like someone is on a new team. As for what happened in the final season, Stanford has worked their way back into, I think, the ACC championship. It'll be either them or Duke. In the American, we got Memphis and Charlotte up here, so we got a new face out of the American. In the Big 12, this is the best the conference has done in this video so far, with number 3 and number 7. Both of them are automatic playoff locks. The Big 10 has got Wisconsin, Ohio State, Oregon up here. UCLA ranked, but they're not going to have a chance at winning a national championship. If we go over to the MAC, Toledo went 11-1. They've just been consistently solid. They're a 3.5-star prestige now. But the Mountain West is not going to have anybody in playoff contention, and neither is the Pac-12. Then we move on to the SEC. Kentucky, they went 4-8. It's time to just look past that. Alabama is back. They're inside the top 10. And Georgia State, another good year. After looking at all those conference standings, I have to decide which one of these games is important for us to spectate, and it might actually be this one between either Stanford and Clemson or Memphis and Charlotte. Ultimately, though, none of those really interested me. I'd rather watch another playoff game or something. I told you that TCU was going to have a good season because of their quarterback. Well, when you have a receiver like this kid, it really makes it easy to have a good year. Kevin Francisco is now a 95. He threw for 5,000 passing yards, 49 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. In fact, I'm surprised he didn't win the Heisman Trophy. TCU might go on to win it all. It's been cool to see San Jose State always have a passer up there as well in those stats, but Shakir Sisko did take a step back this season. And on the rushing side of things, Missouri's running back 24 touchdowns, most yards and most touchdowns, just a dominant season out of him. But again, we have to talk about what Mateo just did because he was the most dominant offensive player in the country according to the Heisman vote. It was a great season for him, and here's some of the other leading receivers. Checking back in on the conference championship results, Toledo lost to Miami, Ohio, so they're not going to have one last run at a championship. TCU didn't even beat BYU. Georgia State, they aren't going to get into the playoff because Charlotte is going to take that spot. And if I had to sit here and pick one final team to make an underdog run, I think BYU could be set up best to do so, especially if they beat TCU. After seeing the way that they dominated against the Ducks as well, I know that I made a solid pick. If we look at the rest of this bracket, you're going to see that Texas took down #1 Clemson, so Clemson is out. They cannot win it all. Alabama lost to TCU because TCU scored 62 points. And I think for these 2 semifinal matchups and the national championship, we should just watch all 3. It looks like they're all going to be really entertaining games. Texas is going for their 3rd national championship. Their head coach is 4. But we have another Texas school that's going to get in the way with their own Heisman Trophy winner. This game ended up going to overtime where TCU's got the ball first, and this is not how TCU is going to end their season. Really? They just threw an interception on the first play of OT. I don't think Texas can mess this up unless they get their kick blocked or something. If they decide to throw the ball though, it could lead to a turnover. It's not. What a horrible way for TCU to go out. I was ready for this to be a thriller. Problem is the Longhorns have centered things up down the middle, and they just threw for a touchdown to end it here. They didn't even want to kick their field goal. They were willing to take that risk. But you know what? I can't question this head coach because he has been the most successful we have seen. Kalani Sitake will be waiting to see who wins this next one for who they're going to play in the championship. And somehow Billy Napier is still coaching for Florida. I remember talking about it when he played Utah in the national championship in year 2. Well, it's year 10. He's still here. He never got fired, and fans better be glad he never got fired because they just waxed the Cougars 51-0. BYU, after having this great year in the Big 12, couldn't do anything against Florida. It was Big 12 versus SEC in the semifinals, and the Big 12 just let everyone down. And it is time for what we have all been waiting for, the final championship, the final game of this video. Ultimately, the no transfer portal experiment has just led to the best teams consistently getting back to the national championship and being dominant, but I think with the portal or without it, it would be that way. I definitely want to do some more experiments like this in the future. I wish this game was closer for the final game, but it wasn't. Texas blew out Florida, and none of it makes any sense because BYU beat TCU. TCU played Texas a lot closer. Florida blew out BYU, but somehow Florida lost 34-9. Oh well, Billy Napier had 2 shots at winning a title, and he did. Meanwhile, we've been able to witness Kalani Sitake going on a historic run. In 6 years, he won 4 championships, 2 of them with UCLA, 2 of them with Texas. Texas won the most national championships in this video. And for coaches that have won national championships, these are the programs that they're going to be finishing this video at. I think we followed most of these moves pretty well throughout it. That's going to do it for this one, though. If you made it this far, if you enjoyed it, please make sure to leave a like on it. It lets me know I should do a concept like this again, and check out some of my other rebuilds too.